Cedar Point is home to 17 roller coasters, some better than other, and today I'm going to be telling you where to sit on each roller coaster. We'll start off with Blue Streak. Now this is hard. If you want a smoother ride, go in the front. If you want a more intense ride, then I would sit in the back. But here's a tip. Each of Blue Streak's carts have 3 rows. If you want a smooth but intense ride, sit second to last row. That is my favorite seat. Ride this thing first thing in the morning and you'll get a huge stomach drop going down the first drop. Cedar Creek Mine Ride. There's not much to talk about here. After all, it is a mine train, but I would probably sit in the front, and if that's taken, then I would sit in the back. Alright, Corkscrew. I have an easy answer for this. Back row. I went on Millennium and I was fine, but that drop in the back row of Corkscrew was very unexpected. So maybe now it won't be as unexpected to you guys since I'm telling you, but still. If you're not going to Cedar Point for a while, remember to sit back row Corkscrew and you'll get an insane stomach drop with the combination of ejector airtime. Now that was easy, but next up is Gatekeeper, which is very hard because this is the B&M wing coaster, meaning that you sit on the edges of the track, so you're not above it. So everywhere you sit is a different experience. I like sitting in the back left because you get whipped over the drop, you get whipped up and then pulled down, and it's a really weird sensation. If you sit in the front right, you'll get super good hang time, which Cedar Point lacks. If you sit in the back right, you'll get whipped down and then pulled down the drop. The back right is probably the most intense, but I like sitting in the back left. Next up, we have Gemini. For me, this is easy. You could argue front is the best, but no. Back row on all the arrows at Cedar Point is just insane. And like many others, I choose back row. It doesn't really matter what train you sit in as they're both the same, but the first drop in the back row is pretty good. Next up we have Iron Dragon. Remember when I said back row on all the arrows are insane? Well, yeah, back row Iron Dragon gives great floater airtime down the drops, and it also gives a pretty good whip and stomach drop feeling going down. Magnum XL 200. This ride is insane in the back, but personally I like something better. Just like Blue Streak, these trains have 3 rows for each cart, and the very last cart sit in the front row, or in other words, sit in the third to back row. Believe me. This is where I got the smoothest airtime on all the hills, and you could argue that for the front, which yeah, that would be my second option, but it's not. Or you could sit in this so-called magic seat, which it should be called the rough and not enjoyable seat. If you're riding Magnum one time, you either have to sit in the front or third to back. For me, I would choose the third to back row. Maverick. This is the only ride I haven't been in the back row of, but I have been in the second to back row, and it's overrated. Front row is definitely the best, and if the crew is nice, you might be able to choose the front row, which is absolutely insane, especially the launch. The only reason I would try and sit back row is basically only for the drop. Millennium Force. This one was the easiest. The back row is not the best. The middle row is also not the best, and that leaves me with the front row. I've ridden it 3 times in the back row and 4 times in the front row. Front row Millennium is something else. You have the best moment at entire Cedar Point, the first drop of Millennium Force. And the airtime is way better in the front than it is in the back. Just trust me, I was in the front row yesterday, so my opinion is fresh. Raptor. So this is like a tie. We have the front row and the third row. Yeah, the third row. On the very right. That's where I got the smoothest ride. And that's also where I get the most insane ride. Well, I guess you could say the back is the most insane ride, but do not sit in the back. It is way too rough. You might actually get a concussion. If you love insane rides, then maybe, but if you like insane rides, then sit literally anywhere else. Rougarou. This ride is pretty forgettable, but I do like the front. Almost every time I'm on this, I get front row. I did back once, and it was good, but front row is where it's at. Steel Vengeance. I went on front row, back row, middle row, and everything in between, and I think front row is the best, but back row is really close. But back row is only better for two things: the drop and the other drop off the mid-course. So what, you might not get as much airtime in the front row, but if you know me, I'm not the biggest fan of airtime. That doesn't mean I don't like it though. Front row is definitely the best on Steel Vengeance, especially when you go down the first drop on the valley, you're absolutely flying. Valraven. This one is really simple. There are 3 rows. Go front. The middle is not that good, and the back has a bad rattle. So if you get the front, you'll have fun. It doesn't matter where you sit in the front, just sit in the front. Wild Mouse. I like going on the outside, but I've only been on this 2 times. Wilderness Run. Back row is where it's at. Woodstock Express. I've only ridden this once in like the last 7 years in the front row, but from my brother's experience, back row feels like Millennium, so go back row. Alright, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time.